Welcome back to the deep dive. This is the place where we cut through all the noise to give you the absolute core insights from some really powerful source material.
And today, we're on a bit of a mission.
We're trying to give you a shortcut, really, to a fact-based worldview. We're going to be taking apart some of the biggest global misconceptions that most of us carry around.
And that includes the experts. Our sources argue that the vast majority of people, and this is regardless of education, operate with something they call an overdramatic worldview.
An overdramatic worldview. I like that phrase. It's this idea that we see the world as, I guess, darker and poorer and just more dangerous than it actually is.
That's the core thesis, yeah. The research they cite is just fascinating. It shows that even really smart, highly educated people do terribly on basic global fact tests.
So it's not about being unintelligent.
No, not at all. It's that the knowledge people are working with, their core understanding of the world, is just. It's fundamentally outdated.
And I think there is no better example of this overdramatic worldview, than the facts around extreme poverty.
Oh, this one is a showstopper.
It really is. If you just take one thing away from this whole deep dive, let it be this. Over the last 2 decades, the proportion of people on this planet living in extreme poverty has been cut in half.
Halved. It's arguably the single greatest, most revolutionary leap forward in all of human history.
And yet what happens when you ask people about it?
The results are just. They're shocking. In poll after poll, including with world leaders and public figures, only 7% of people get that right.
7%. So you're saying 93% of people are wrong about the single biggest positive change of our time?
And many of them are not just a little wrong.
Right. I was looking at the U.S.-specific data, and it's even worse. Only 5% got it right, which means the other 95% thought it had either stayed the same or
that it had doubled.
They believe the literal opposite of the truth.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the source materials diagnosis for this is really smart. They say it's not stupidity, it's an upgrade problem.
An upgrade problem.
Yeah, your mental software is out of date.
Yeah.
The facts you learned in school were maybe true then, but the world has moved on. We all need a systematic knowledge upgrade.
Okay, so let's start that upgrade. Let's tackle what the sources call the mega misconception. This idea of a divided world, which is driven by what they call our gap instinct.
The gap instinct. It's this mental shortcut where we use these old, outdated labels.
Like developing and developed countries.
Or the West versus the rest. These phrases, they instantly create this picture in our heads of a world split in two.
The rich over here and the desperately poor over there at this huge gap in the middle.
A huge empty gap, but the data just shatters that picture completely.
So what does that gap instinct make us believe? I know they polled people on this. They asked people in places like the U.S. and Sweden, what percentage of the world lives in low-income countries?
And the average guess was 59%.
59. So most people think that more than half the world is living in the poorest possible conditions.
That's the mental map they're working with. And it is so dangerously wrong.
So what's the real number?
It's just 9%.
Wow. Only 9% of the world's population lives in what the World Bank officially calls a low-income country.
Right. So this idea of a vast, impoverished other half of the world it's just an illusion. It's not real anymore.
So where is everybody else?
They are the missing majority. They're living in what we should be talking about all the time, middle-income countries.
And that's what percentage of humanity?
75%. 3 out of every 4 people on Earth. There is no gap. It's a smooth continuum.
To really get a handle on this, the source offers a much better framework, a new map, the 4 income levels.
This is so much more useful. Level 1, that's extreme poverty. Living on less than $2 a day, you're walking barefoot, cooking over a fire. About 1 billion people are there.
And then level 4 is where most of us listening are. Over $64 a day. We fly on planes, we have cars, we eat out. That's the high-income life.
Exactly. But the crucial insight, the place where most of humanity lives, is in the middle, level 2 and level 3.
What does that look like?
On level 2, you can afford shoes, maybe a bicycle. Your kids are probably in school. On level 3, you've got a motorbike, you have running water, electricity. Things are getting a lot better.
So the old map just saw level 1 and level 4, but the reality is that the vast majority of people are on those 2 middle rungs of the ladder.
Precisely. The big summary here is that 85% of humankind is already inside the box we used to call the developed world.
85%.
In places like China, India, most of Latin America, families are small and children rarely die. The picture in our heads needs a complete reboot.
That reframes absolutely everything. Okay, let's move on to another tool we need, which is controlling our dramatic instincts when we see raw data. They talk about the size instinct.
The size instinct. This is our tendency to see a big, lonely number and just get it completely out of proportion.
A lonely number, I like that. So death toll, or, total emissions.
Right. And the solution is so simple. It's two things, comparison and division. Always.
The CO2 example is perfect for the division part. You see a headline, China's total emissions are huge.
Which they are. But that's a lonely number. It's misleading. To have a real conversation about responsibility, you have to divide. You have to look at emissions per person.
Per capita.
Per capita. And that tells a completely different story about who has historically used and is currently using the most resources. You need that division line to see the real rate.
And what about comparison?
Mm-hmm.
The source uses the number of child deaths, which is it's a huge, tragic number.
It is. 4.2 million infants died in 2016. And when you hear that number, it's just, it's horrifying. It feels like we're failing.
But you have to compare it.
You have to. In 1950, that number was 14.4 million. So is 4.2 million still a tragedy? Of course. It's awful. But the trend, the progress, is beautiful. It's a drop of almost 75%. You can't just look at the big number by itself.
That's such a critical point. Okay, so that brings us to maybe the most powerful instinct of all, the one that really clouds our judgment, the fear instinct.
Fear, it just hijacks our thinking. It makes us confuse what is frightening with what is actually dangerous.
Perceived risk versus real risk.
Exactly. Our brains are hardwired from, the savannah. We pay attention to sudden, visible threats, a snake in the grass.
A plane crash.
Yeah.
A terror attack.
And you can see how skewed our attention is in level 4 countries, right? We pour attention and resources into things that are very, very unlikely to harm us simply because they scare us.
The data is pretty stark on that. Terrorism accounts for, 0.05% of deaths on level 4, and plane crashes are even less, 0.0001%.
Statistically insignificant.
Yep.
But they dominate the news because they're dramatic. They're frightening.
And the sources have this incredible comparison that just forces you to reevaluate everything.
It's the Nepal earthquake.
Right.
So in a 10-day period, the earthquake in Nepal killed 9,000 people. And what happened? Wall-to-wall media coverage, international rescue teams, helicopters, a massive global response, a huge, visible crisis.
But in that same 10-day period?
And that exact same 10-day period, another 9,000 children died around the world from diarrhea, mostly from contaminated water.
And the media coverage.
Nothing. A total media silence, no trending hashtags, no fleets of helicopters. It's a quiet, invisible tragedy.
And that's the whole point. We allocate resources based on fear, not on data. A few plastic pipes and water pumps could have saved most of those kids, and they cost a fraction of a helicopter.
But pipes aren't dramatic. They don't make for good television.
Let's get into the psychology of why this mega misconception that the world is getting worse is so sticky. Why do we cling to it? The source calls this the destiny instinct.
The destiny instinct. It's this deep, almost unconscious belief that things are fixed, that cultures and nations have a set destiny and they never really change.
Slow change equals no change.
Right. And we have to really fight against that because change is constant. And sometimes it's incredibly fast.
The example they use from Sweden is amazing.
It is. In the 1960s, abortion was illegal in Sweden. So young Swedish women had to travel to, of all places, Catholic Poland to get a safe procedure.
And just a few years later.
Just 5 years later, the whole thing completely flipped. Sweden legalized abortion, Poland banned it, and the flow of women reversed entirely.
So cultures aren't these static, unchanging rocks.
Not at all. And this is so important because if you believe in a fixed destiny, you believe problems like, say, rapid population growth are also fixed. Unsolvable.
But the data tells a different story.
A completely different story. The only proven humane way to curb population growth is to eradicate extreme poverty and improve lives.
Specifically by educating girls and giving people access to contraception.
That's it. When parents stop seeing their children die, when they know their kids will survive to adulthood, they voluntarily choose to have smaller families.
So the improvement in health we talked about earlier directly leads to population stability.
It's a direct link. The period of fast global population growth is already ending because of this progress. The destiny instinct is just wrong.
Okay, so let's try to pull all this together. We've seen that the world is, at the same time, better with this incredible historic progress. But it's also still bad. There are still huge problems, like those 4.2 million infant deaths.
We have to be able to hold both ideas in our head at once. The source has a brilliant analogy for this.
The premature baby.
The premature baby in an incubator, its condition is critical. That's the bad part. The problems are real and serious.
Bye-bye.
But its vital signs are improving steadily. That's the better part. The trend is positive. The world is both bad and at the same time getting better, and accepting that duality is key to avoiding both cynicism and naive optimism.
So the takeaways for you, listening to this, are pretty clear. First, be really suspicious of your dramatic instincts. When you hear a big number, always ask for a comparison.
Always a vie to find the rate. And stop seeing the world as us and them. Look for the vast majority in the middle.
And be ready to do a brain upgrade. Be ready to accept that the facts you learned 10 or 20 years ago might just be expired.
And we'll leave you with a final provocative thought. It connects everything we've talked about, our hearts and our heads. It's that when we think about huge future challenges, like sustainability or population growth, we often think we have to choose. Do we help the suffering child right in front of us now? Or do we make hard-headed plans for the future?
But it's a false choice.
It's a completely false choice. The work we do right now to save children's lives to reduce child mortality is not only the right thing to do morally, it is also the single most effective thing we can do to ensure a stable, sustainable global population for the long-term future. The heart and the head want the exact same thing.